welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Tuesday morning. I'm here in Los Angeles for opening day in the NBA. Joining me from Naples, Florida. I'm not going to call you front office insider. You're insider, Bobby Marks. How's it going, Bobby?
I'm good. I'm ready for season 29 for me. I feel old just saying that.
29. Yeah, well, you've got kids in college now. I don't know if I know you know, but that kind of implies that. Yeah, season 22 for me, my 22nd opener tonight, Lakers, Timberwolves. But we just had extensions. Gosh, I mean, every year the extension season is max stress, Bobby. Like literally yesterday at there's a team that at 4:30 was like, hey, I'm going to hit you up after 6 o'clock and we're going to discuss basically why we didn't sign our player. And then the player signed. Like this, a lot of times comes down to the last minute. It's a high stress day and we got a lot more extensions done than I think we thought.
Yeah, I thought I said it when we went on TV last week on NBA Today. I thought we were looking at 8. I thought Corey Kispert and Moses Moody were kind of not locks, but those would have brought us to 6. And it was just a matter of where were we going to go with the numbers. Trey Murphy, certainly. And then I thought, certainly Jalen Suggs and the 2 players in Houston with Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green and Jalen Johnson of the Hawks. Those were kind of like wild cards as far as where we are. It's always amazing, though, that when you talk to agents and you throw out numbers, and I said, hey, would you do if it was 5 for 1/5? No, we would never do it. Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get, when you get to a deadline and you got $150 million staring at you, guaranteed money in a market next offseason that's not very appealing, it looks a lot better than what it was. And we wind up getting 11 extensions, 3 less than last year, but still a really good number. With certainly, Jonathan Kuminga and Josh Giddey as the 2 big names that did not get extended.
Yeah. So from what I understand, just on those fronts, the Kuminga situation was never close. Both sides put out numbers in the process. They were not close. So the gap never really got closed. That deal was struck long before the deadline. They knew there wasn't a deal there. And I will say on Josh Giddey, from what I understand, Bobby, there was never really any meaningful negotiations there, which was a surprise to me. I thought the Bulls were going to be under some amount of pressure to get him done because they had traded Alex Caruso for him. I was talking to one executive the other day and they thought Alex Caruso's value was 2 first-round picks, basically. Now, first-round picks in this day and age are fungible, they're not all created equal. But basically he thought the equivalent of trading 2 firsts for Josh Giddey. And when you make a deal like that, you're basically saying this is our starting point guard. And, I think one of the things that created an issue in the guard market was Emmanuel Quickley. But certainly, Jalen Suggs getting $150 million. Jalen Suggs and Josh Giddey are very different players, but they are both starting guards. Suggs is a defensive first player. Giddey's an offensive first player. But Quickley got 175. Suggs got 150. If you're Josh Giddey, maybe you don't get Quickley money, but you're certainly going to want that Suggs level money. And they never even got anywhere close from what I'm told. So that's certainly something to watch as this season plays out.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking with a team and we were joking and I said, well, I thought Giddey would have gotten extended right after the Olympics were over because he actually played pretty well for the Australian national team. And you saw them up close here. I think the Giddey thing is hard just because you really have a limited time to evaluate him on your own roster. If he was on the Bulls a year ago and you got to see him up close over 82 games, I think you probably have a little bit more of a comfort level. I thought that, as we said, you kind of dangled guaranteed money. I wrote about it. I thought, hey, if you throw out 5 for 120, let's see if he's willing to do that, which would put you on the, starting point guard money. The average starting point guard money is like $29-30 million in this league. It's high. It's not the center market here where it's really top heavy. And that would have probably put him on the not the bottom end, but below that number. So we'll see what happens with Josh Giddey in the offseason now.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be something to watch because I think I don't know how many games the Bulls are going to win, but I think Giddey's going to put up really big numbers. Even with, Lonzo Ball back and Cody White there, I think Giddey is just primed to put up big numbers. So we'll see how that goes. I want to talk about the things that got done. Houston had a fascinating day. In the history of contract extensions, it was up there. Primarily, they signed two guys. One guy they signed, Alperen Şengün, you broke the story, 5 years, $185 million. Okay, we can talk about that. But the fascinating thing is they signed two players, both of these guys from the same draft class. One guy was drafted number 2 overall, Jalen Green. One guy was a draft night trade. I think he was 15, 16-ish. And one of the things, Bobby, about this is you have two guys, it's difficult. You can't always treat them the same. Clearly in Golden State, Moses Moody gets extended, 3 years, $39 million. He's very happy. Kuminga doesn't, gets no traction there. Every situation is different. Just because you extend one doesn't mean you have to extend the other. But very rarely have I ever seen such a disparity in the type of contracts. And, Rafael Stone, their general manager, he's obviously going to say nothing but wonderful things about him. But when one guy gets a 3-year deal, really only 2 years guaranteed, well, it's all guaranteed. Jalen Green gets 3 and $106 million, but he's got an opt-out after the second year. So basically, when the Rockets give him the deal, they recognize it could be a 2-year deal. One guy gets 2 years, essentially. The other guy gets 5, no opt-out. It's hard to
there's an opt-out in Şengün.
Oh, Şengün did get an opt-out.
Yeah. Yes, he did. We
right.
talked about this at length we don't see that anymore, right, Brian? Remember all these max guys? I think Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum and Luka and Trae Young had player options in their contracts. And then we hit this cold spell for like a 3-year cold spell. So Şengün is actually the first players in Luka and Trae back in 2021 to get a player option on a 5-year contract for $30 million. His is pretty interesting in that aspect.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to talk about this Jalen Green contract.
Yes.
So first off, the fascinating thing about this is, you have two guys that they're investing in, one guy much shorter than the other guy. So they can spin it whatever they want. They can give hugs to the players, talk about greatness, but very clearly the offers to the two players were very different. And I think the thing that the league really reacted to yesterday in talking to people is that, yes, Jalen Green got an option in his contract, and what his agency CAA was certainly making clear. Shams was talking about this on TV yesterday. Was like, we've never seen a contract like this before. It's a unique contract in history. That's because a player who gets a contract this big very rarely would have only 2 years plus one. The team who wants to invest $30 million in a player typically doesn't want to give 2 plus 1. So while it is a unique situation, and yes, if he's great the next 2 years, he can opt out and get a bigger deal. Like, that's true. Like, his agency is not wrong about that. But part of the reasons why it was unique was because the Rockets were limited in what they wanted to invest in. And what the league was reacting to, when I talked to executives, Bobby, the aspect of the contract that they were reacting to wasn't just the 2 years plus the option. It was the 10% trade kicker that's in the deal. This is a contract that a lot of people in the league think was signed for the option to be traded. And getting the 10% trade kicker in there, which is the biggest trade kicker that was given out yesterday in all these deals. To me, I'm not saying the Rockets are like definitely going to trade him. I'm just saying this contract was designed to allow him to be traded.
I totally agree. I mean, you made your calls, I made my calls, and that was, I said, like, and the big thing for me, like, when these extensions get done, and I talk to teams, like, all right, walk me through, like, your mindset. If you were Rafael Stone and doing that, and they said, like, listen, it's a lot easier to trade on July 1st compared to letting him become a restricted free agent, and then basically you have to either do a signing trade or
next year.
Next year in 2025, or maybe you have to. It's basically it's kind of like what an offer sheet would look like, kind of the 3 years there. It's a lot easier to trade instead of waiting until January 15th of 2026. I think from the player's perspective, doing a shorter term deal helps him navigate if he was ever traded somewhere. So if he was traded to a team that was in the bottom of the standings, well, he's got a get out of jail free card after 2 years where he can become a free agent and enter the marketplace here. So while, yes, it is unprecedented, we don't see
so the way you just described, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Basically, what you're saying is he negotiated this contract on his side to protect himself from getting traded to a team that he didn't want to be at.
Yeah.
So like, not only is the team, putting him in a contract that they think they can trade. In other words, it's not a 5-year deal or whatever, but he's protecting himself too, saying, well, look, if they trade me in a year, at least I have the ability to maybe not be forced to stay in a place for 3 or 4 years where I didn't want to be. So not only does he get a bonus, but he also potentially gets a way to get out of the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly, and I think if he plays like he did in March and April of last season, and he blows up and doesn't want to re-sign or extend after the going into his the third year, which is a player option, then I think it's certainly manageable that you can certainly move, and then whatever team he's traded to can extend him here. So it gives both sides the flexibility where he's not stuck on a 5-year, $150 million contract, and he gets traded, and all of a sudden he's there. He's in Detroit for years, 3 to 5, with no way to become a free agent again.
And here's the thing on Şengün. So Şengün, the max salary for guys like Franz Wagner, Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham was 5 years and around 220. So Şengün got about 40-ish million less than that. So they got him to take. He didn't get anywhere near a max, but he still gets a 5-year guarantee. And I didn't realize that he had the opt-out, but yeah. I think part of the reason he gets the opt-out is because he was willing to take so far less than the max to get that done. And, if he has a big year this year, he may have been able to position himself to ask for that max. But that seems to me to be part of what the negotiation was.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people got caught up, and we talked about it on TV last week, certainly his cap hold. Which is really low based on he was, I think, the 16th pick in the draft, and his cap hold was $16 million.
Right.
So
they could have had a bunch of caps. If they didn't extend him, they could have had they could have basically done what Philly did with Tyrese Maxey, which was wait to extend him and then take advantage of the lower cap hold. That was an option for them.
Yeah, that was. But then you're looking at free agency and you're like, well, for who, right? Like, who's the main guy? And I think you would rather have him under contract. Because like Jalen Johnson, I think he could have probably made more next offseason if he would have had the year both guys had prior here. So I understand it from the player's perspective, certainly 185 and then become a free agent. And then from the team's perspective, locking him into that deal. As we've seen, like, free agency is like third on the list of building rosters now, right? Like, I put it out yesterday. We spent $1.5 billion on rookie extensions and another like 2.6 on veteran extensions. That's the way to go as far as retaining guys, and then explore kind of what the trade market is.
Okay, Bobby, you mentioned some of the other extensions that went down yesterday. There was a little bit of drama, I think, with Jalen Suggs and Jalen Johnson. Suggs with the Magic and Jalen Johnson with the Hawks. Both those teams wanted to get deals done, but the question was trying to really kind of agree on a value. And I think really in the final, like, from what I understand and have been told, in the final few hours, basically the team increased their offers a little bit, and that helped get the deal done. And the key thing, I think, was Jalen Suggs getting done. I do think Jalen Suggs getting done at the $150 million number affected Jalen Johnson getting basically the exact same contract. So one of the things that was going on throughout the process was these teams trying to put a value on these players. And Trey Murphy was also in. Now, Trey Murphy got a 4-year contract as opposed to 5. Trey got a 4-year, $112 million contract. It was about $28 million a year. So that was sort of established that market. That was right in line with what Jaden McDaniels got last year with the Timberwolves. So that number was about right. But like, I can just tell you, in talking to these teams over the last 10 days, they were like, hey, what's Murphy? Where is he at? What's Jalen Johnson at? Like, everybody was trying to feel each other out. So Murphy gets a contract, then Suggs comes in slightly higher. And I think Suggs getting done at that 150 number helped basically get the number there for Jalen Johnson. I think those three were kind of sort of secret shadowing each other. And I definitely think that it was a bit of a domino effect. We see this in other years, but like, I don't know. At 4:00, I'm not sure Jalen Johnson was going to get done. And then Suggs gets done, and then bam, Jalen Johnson comes behind it. What did you think of those deals?
Jalen Johnson's contract, I was told, that was sent into the league office at 5:59 p.m. At the buzzer.
Yeah.
To get in there. And as it was like, felt like it was a lot of horse trading information as far as, hey, does he have bonuses? Is it guaranteed? Is it not? Is it descending? Right? Like,
so I will say this: as soon as the Jalen Suggs number happened, the Hawks were very interested in the structure of the contract. And the contracts are for the same amount of money, but they're different structure. This is why we have podcasts to talk about this exact thing. Can you talk about how the Suggs contract is structured and how the Jalen Johnson contract is structured?
Well, Suggs, the Magic front office are notorious for descending contracts. Like except, the Franz Wagner contract doesn't. It's a true max. And when they sign Paolo Banchero next year to a rookie extension, it won't be either. But you look at all their contracts, how they've structured it, they start high and then they descend here. So for Suggs, it starts at 35 and it kind of descends down to like 32 and change with him. The Magic have also been notorious as far as putting bonuses in contract.
All the way, by the way, at the end of the deal, Suggs' contract is $26 million. Yep. So that's a lot of money, but you think about in 2029-30, when the salary cap will be well north of $200 million, that contract, if he continues to play this well, will end up being a value contract probably starting it at 35 and descending it down to 26 at the end.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with you. So there's no bonuses in there. And what we've seen with extensions is teams were adamant, except for there's some little bonuses in Moses Moody's extension, of not putting bonuses in contract because of these apron rules. They do not want bonuses.
They want to know exactly how much money is going to be on their books year to year. They don't want uncertainty. Yeah.
And then we always see these all NBA and all whatever, like bonuses that some guys won't hit. So Suggs decrease, Jalen Johnson flat. A rare flat line 30 across the board for him.
30, 30, 30, 30, 30 with no options. No options, no bonuses. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a little bit of interesting drama. Now, those were all the you mentioned Kispert, Corey Kispert, really good shooter for the Wizards. He got a 4-year deal. He also got a descending contract, by the way. The Wizards, thinking out. His last year on that is a team option, so there was an option on that contract. That's essentially a mid-level contract, basically a mid-level contract. His contract and Moses Moody's contract are very similar, and both of them wing shooters, not exactly the same type of player, but comparable. Both guys taken in the teens, I think. In the 2021 draft. So those contracts were very similar. But there was a veteran extension done yesterday as well, and that was Aaron Gordon. And Aaron Gordon with the Nuggets had an interesting situation here. We talked about it on the podcast last week. Bontemps has criticized the Nuggets for maybe not negotiating as hard as they should, knowing that their salaries are, an issue for them. A year ago, they gave a contract out on this day to Zeke Naji, which was really a big surprise. He has underperformed, and that contract's been an issue. Given, McMahon and Bontemps both were all over me for, excusing the Nuggets for giving Jamal Murray the full max with no protection. They did do some negotiation on this Aaron Gordon contract, though. I wonder if you could explain what they did.
Yeah, so Gordon had a player option for next year. If we got through Monday, he would have been eligible to still extend up for 4 years, $143 million. He would basically had to decline that option and then extend off the current year. The first year, if they had done that, would have been like $33 million, right? It would have saw his number go up plus 10. I was doing something last night, and Omis texted me and he says, how much did they actually save in this? Well, for him opting into his contract and not going up at a higher number, they saved like $60 million in projected luxury tax penalties. I mean, it's a monster. So basically what he did was he opted in to that $22.8 million and then extended for 3 more years at 104, 105, can get to about $110 million with some bonuses in here. So it starts they catch a break this year, they catch a break next year at a good number, and then it goes up higher in that I guess it's 2026-27 season.
Yeah.
So for them to do that, they had to get that done by Monday night.
Right. And I'm sure, Aaron Gordon comes into first off, Aaron Gordon gets guaranteed $130 million here.
And a trade bonus and a player option. He got everything.
He got a player option and a small trade bonus. And this is the second extension he signed there. He's a great fit there. He's in the prime of his career. Like, I don't want to make it sound like there was a real concession here. Like he was taken care of here. And the Nuggets went up and kept this guy, and they've been wrapped for losing Caldwell Pope. All right, like they have drafted who they hope is their replacement for Kentavious Caldwell Pope in Strother, in Peyton Watson. Like they believe that they will be able to replace it, and then they've put the money into Murray and now Gordon, and I think at some point they'll get something done with Michael Porter. That'll be a different negotiation, but the key here is they probably saved $10 million on next year's cap by negotiating this way, and Gordon opting in saved them $10 million. And next year, the cap is going to go up by 20% over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years from now, they should have some more breathing room. This year and next year, they're tight, and so they held the line a little bit, and Gordon went along with them. Gordon helped them keep this team together. I think that's what the key is to take away from the way they put this together.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think Aaron Gordon also probably looked at what free agency looked at like next year in 2025 and be like, well, can I get 30 out there from a team? Does it make sense? Does Brooklyn make sense? There, as we've talked about, there's just it's not flushed with money.
Yeah. And I just, I think people in general, people need to pull back on criticism of the Nuggets. Obviously, Jamal Murray's health is so important. Like, they can't really control that to a certain extent. They're still making good decisions. They are relying on their draft picks.
Yep.
Calvin Booth's reliance on getting those draft picks to develop, and Michael Malone's preference to maybe have more veterans. That's as old as time. That's going to happen. But Calvin Booth is very good at his job. Michael Malone is very good at his job. They have development people who have shown that they can do their jobs. Okay, it's not ideal. And ideally, when you had a championship team, you would keep it all together. But let's pull back on doom and gloom for the Nuggets. The Nuggets have a lot of things going for them, especially Jokic in his prime. I know that they didn't play great in the preseason. There's some concerns, but this deal, it's just a moment to just cool your jets on Nuggets concerns right now.
Well, I mean, I think if you ask people, and as a CBA, what it does is kind of forces you to kind of pick and choose as far as who do you want to keep here. And I think if you ask fans, who would you rather keep, Aaron Gordon or Kentavious Caldwell Pope? I mean, I think it would be Aaron Gordon, right? And if you knew. And then you have these, whether it be Peyton Watson or Strother or Christian Braun, these young players that can kind of step in. You're not going to totally replace KCP, but if you can get one of those guys into that role, and it helps you balances your finances. Listen, not everybody could be Boston and basically write a $500 million check, next year, or Phoenix, for example. We've talked about Phoenix at length as far as their depth, and you talked about Ryan Dunn. You need those guys. That's right. When you hit on those picks and you can get one of those guys on a 4-year inexpensive contract through the draft, that saves you so much for the year.
All right. Getting to the court now. It was announced today, Tuesday. You're hearing this and seeing this on Wednesday. That Joel Embiid is not going to be ready to play for their opener. Paul George very likely not going to play either. So, look, I'm not going to freak out about Philly's health in October. But, Bobby, Joel Embiid not being ready to play, unless I don't have all the information, which is certainly possible. I strive to do my best, but I don't think Joel Embiid has an injury here. I think this is essentially maintenance, and I think essentially he's not ready to play, for lack of a better way to say it, or at least somebody's made the evaluation that he's not ready to play. He doesn't need to be ready to play in October, but, you know, it's not great.
No, I mean, listen, we just saw him play in the Olympics. You saw him play up close in the Olympics, and there was no injury there. And certainly him going through training camp, you know, basically it was maintenance, right? I mean, that's how it was described as far as, and they've been out front as far as basically saying the goal is to get him to April, May, and June. Like, the interesting part will be is, you know, if it's not an injury, how does the league react to that? Where, you know, certainly he's not playing on national TV against Milwaukee on Wednesday night, and I think they've ruled him out for the rest of the week also here, because there are the rules, the player participation policy as far as whether it be back-to-back games or, you know, national TV games. You know, that's kind of a fine line. Paul George is a different situation because he was injured a week ago. So as you said, I'm not going to sound the alarms, but this is going to be something that we're going to be talking about all year. I mean, that's the reality as far as, you know, what we're with Joel Embiid.
Yeah. So Philly. So we talked about this earlier in the preseason. Bontemps went to their training camp down in the Bahamas. He talked to Embiid, and Embiid told him he's probably not going to play back-to-backs the rest of his career. Probably. I mean, and we're not going to hold him to that kind of stuff. But they have 15 back-to-backs. He has basically said he's not focused on awards. That's code for, I'm not even trying to play 65 games. And the 65 game thing last year, it worked. Like, you go and look, the most games LeBron has played in 5 years. There's the most games Kawhi has played in 5 years. There's the most games Paul George has played in 5 years. You can go down it was most games that Anthony Davis had played. Guys tried to hit that number, sometimes to their detriment. You know, Tyrese Halliburton maybe shouldn't have played the 65 games. You know, it may have affected the recovery from that hamstring, but he got the contract bonus. There was a reason for him to do it. Number one, like him basically saying that, you know, okay, like at the end of the day, what's important is that he's healthy in the spring. But my point is this: Paul George has played 53 games on average over the last 5 years. Now, last year he did play 74. So he is coming off of his most healthy year in 5 years, but he is now already hurt. Philly is a reasonably deep team, but like, what's Philly going to be if Joel Embiid is playing 50 games and Paul George, let's just say he plays between his 53 average and the 74 he played last year. Let's say we'll give him 66 games. What are the Sixers going to look like, and how are they going to manage that? And Bobby, like, you've been in these discussions. The way they're going to manage it is going to be different from the way a team like the Knicks plays. You know how the Knicks are going to play. Tibbs is going to play with the gas pedal down. Watching the way Philly handles this season and New York handles this season is going to be truly a study in two totally different strategies.
I agree. I mean, I think Philadelphia benefits a little bit because of Andre Drummond, who they signed in the offseason, as basically you can put him in at starter minutes here. I think the most fascinating thing, and certainly from a front office perspective, and you mentioned the 65 game rule and how it's worked, and we're seeing more player participation, is the depth in the standings of the Eastern Conference. This is not your mom and pop's Eastern Conference from 3 years ago, where this thing is so deep, where we're talking about Orlando and Cleveland and Miami and Indiana, teams like that, and who we really don't talk about as much, you could make an argument could be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference here. But for me, I am, as Daryl Morey has come out, I am putting a maintenance program on him. I am watching as far as where his minutes are. But here's the thing. Okay, to what extent though? What happens a month from now? We look up at the standings and now we're 7-9. Now we're Christmas Day. We're 20-24. You know, like, I don't think we're going to get there, but that's going to be the most interesting thing for me. New York is a totally different animal here, just based on their depth. They've got no Precious Achiuwa to start the year. They've got no Mitchell Robinson. They have 10 healthy players.
Well, you know, Jericho Sims, like there are people, by the way, not to go too deep in the cuts here. Jericho Sims is going to get minutes for the Knicks coming out of the gate. There are people who believe Jericho Sims hasn't gotten as much minutes as he earned, and this could be a great opportunity for him. But at the end of the day, they are playing their fourth string center is going to get big minutes on opening night, and for at least maybe the first month of the season. They're going to be relying on their fourth string center to deliver for them.
Yeah.
Like, That's a reality for the Knicks.
I mean, a total reality. I mean, everyone's going to get a full education on the roster rules of carrying 12, 14 or less players this year, because that's what New York's going to be wind up straddling. They're going into the season with 12 players on their active roster. Then they've got their 2A. They're right 3.5 below the second apron. They're not going to carry 14 until they have to, which will be, 2 weeks from now, which is like November 4th. And with Tibbs, right, you're going to be, it's going to be extremely. Basically, you're going to throw data science out the window.
They're carrying 3 open roster spots right now.
Yep.
The Knicks are using a 4th string player and carrying 3 open roster spots. That's what's happening with the Knicks.
And most of those are guards, right? When you look at the reserves, whether it be Campaign, Tyler Kolek, it's guard heavy. Kevin McCullough, who's on the 2A, is hurt. It's one of the most interesting things as far as where the starter minutes are going to be. It's back-to-backs are going to be fascinating. As far as, can you
actually, they may not be fascinating, Bobby. They may just be like, we're playing this like it doesn't matter. Like I said this the other day on the pod. I'm a little bit worried about the Knicks coming out of the gate. I'm trying to calm down. Like I was just on with Stephen A. this morning. He's all fired up. I get it. I'm trying to calm everybody down because I'm not sure how fast they're going to start here. Bridges' shot is messed up. He's got this hitch that's come out. Yeah. He's 2 of 19 on threes in the preseason. And look, I've been around long enough to know it's kind of like you hear these golfers who are hitting shanks, these pro golfers who are hitting shanks on the practice tee, and they get out there and shoot 64. Sometimes guys get into it, their mindset gets different, and it gets fixed. But I'm just saying, like, it'd be irresponsible to not point out that there's something with his shot that doesn't look quite right. He's talked about it. It'd be irresponsible to not mention that Josh Hart played 90 minutes in the preseason and scored 2 points because he's not sure where his shots are coming from or what his role is. Karl Towns is a shock change. Like he goes 4-23 on threes in the preseason. Like he could go 6 of 8 in the opener in Boston. Like, but he's not quite right. This is just pointing this out about the Knicks.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, and you've got your like one OG Anunoby hamstring away from being like, here we go. Right. Like I think there has to be that concern. I think there was going to be that concern if you didn't make the Towns trade, probably too, because you would have had Randall and you would have still had no Mitchell Robinson, and who knows what would have happened with the Chua. So yeah, they were walking a thin line before they made the trade, and now they're walking a extreme balancing act, and that's a big reason why. Like I could say, I didn't think people will say, "Wait, you're nuts." I said, "Hey, listen, we could look up at Christmas Day, and Indiana could be sitting in number 2 seed, right? Like because they're dead." Or Cleveland. Yeah, or Orlando, one of these teams.
Yeah, Orlando feels good about itself. We know this because they've extended. They extended Wendell Carter, they extended Franz Wagner, they extended Suggs. They apparently like where they are. They signed Caldwell Pope. So yeah, like I think that's a reasonable thing to look at. And it is a challenge. It is a organizational challenge about how you're going to handle this. And watching the Knicks and Sixers is emblematic of the 2 ways you can handle it. And I think Boston will get off to a good start. I think they will, but they're missing Porzingis. I'm not sure, we'll see how that goes. Like it's a factor. And you look out here in LA and you've got the Clippers starting the season without Kawhi, so it's, and they got to protect him and they got to try to get that knee healthy. Like these teams got to make these kind of organizational decisions early on the season, and it gets complicated. All right, let's move away from bummer stuff and let's talk about a feel-good story. So we're recording this on Tuesday. Tonight, I think there's a good chance that Bronny James is going to have that moment with LeBron here in LA against the Timberwolves. The cat kind of got out of the bag. I think Nike was trying to spring Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. on, and then I think Jr. did a podcast or an interview or something. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going down to the game on Tuesday," and they were like, "Oh." So, and I will say this: the first game that LeBron and Bronny were active in the preseason.
Well, you put the kiss of death on that because as for the viewers out there, we had gotten an assignment for literally like 8 o'clock that night about writing a recap of if LeBron and Bronny played together in Palm Springs, right? That's where we were.
Yeah.
And you on the email thread said, I don't think it's going to happen. And why would it happen here? And then I'm watching, and I told my wife, and my wife's like, I think they're out there playing right now. I said, oh God, now I got to write 300 words.
I know. So there we go. We had to go work. I was a little bit surprised that it happened on a random night in Palm Springs, but I guess it was kind of the dry run. We'll see. If it doesn't happen tonight, it's going to happen soon afterwards. I think JJ is really invested in this. And look, this is going to be, I think it's going to happen tonight, but the viewers and listeners will know whether that happened or not when they see this. Whether it happens on Tuesday night or whether it happens in the short-term future, it's going to happen. It's going to be an international story that crosses over beyond sports. Like, it's going to be on Good Morning America. It's going to be on CNN. It's going to be covered in Europe and in Asia, Australia. And you're going to see a lot of reaction to it. There's going to be a lot of heartfelt from casuals who think it's a great moment, which I am in that camp. Then there's going to be a lot of criticism from people who are going to call for nepotism. I'm just going to say two things about this, Bobby, and I'd like your opinion from an organizational perspective, you having 20 plus years experience in a front office. The first thing I'll say is nepotism is everywhere in the NBA. If you're looking for egregious nepotism, you will find more egregious examples of it. I'll just leave it at that. The second thing I'm going to say is at the 55th pick in the draft, what is the hit rate there, Bobby? Like, unscientifically, is it 1 in 10? Is it 1 in 8?
If that.
Probably half the time, the 55th pick is an international player that may never come over. Okay. Obviously, you can find picks in the 50s that are very valuable. It happens. Ginobili is probably I think he was the 57th pick, for example. So if Hall of Famers have come out of the 50s, I understand that. But if the 55th pick in the draft helps your superstar player get 10% more engaged in the season, not even just LeBron. Like, let's say your 55th pick in the draft is a center who you can play 3 minutes a game, and it helps your starting center rest a little bit. He's a star and it helps him 10%. Great pick. Like, if you get a guy at the 55th pick that can help your star player get a little bit better, it's a good move, okay? And this, having Bronny there, has unquestionably energized and engaged and excited LeBron. And I think that's why JJ Redick is doing it. If there's, the thing about the Lakers this year, they have the same roster essentially. Okay, they have Dalton Connect, who can maybe help them a little bit as a rotation wing player. But essentially, it's the same roster. The only way they're going to get better, and by the way, they were healthy last year. I know that it's like, oh, well, Jared Vanderbilt was injured and, Gabe Vincent was injured. Okay, every team's going to have injuries, but their star players were healthy. It was a healthy year last year. If they could take a repeat of that this year, they would sign up for it. The way to improve this roster is to get more out of these guys. And that's what JJ Redick has done coming in. You look at how Anthony Davis is shooting threes in the preseason. Darvin Ham tried to get him to shoot threes last year. It didn't work. JJ Redick has appealed to him. It's working. There's something that JJ is doing in connecting with Anthony Davis that is getting what he wants out of him. He has tried to engage Austin Reeves more. He has tried to engage D'Angelo Russell, the biggest swing player in the Western Conference, in my opinions, out of more. And he is trying to engage LeBron more. And part of the way you do that is making Bronny a member of this and playing Bronny out there and giving him these moments. Then it's a great move. Forget about that it's Bronny James. Forget about, one criticism I'll allow, Bobby, is that he was not signed to a two-way contract, that they used a roster spot on him and they guaranteed him. I don't care about the guaranteed money, but they used if you want to say that he should be a two-way player because he's going to spend a lot of time in the G League, I'll give you that. But I think organizationally, this is a smart decision, not just to do LeBron a favor, but I think it's a good decision for the whole direction of the franchise. That's my position. I'm sticking to it. How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, for one of the older teams in the NBA, I think there's a youthfulness about this roster. I mean, you saw it on media day when like it was like the first, I said it on TV, it was like the first day of school. Everybody was happy, and I think there's a continuance there. I think, listen, it's similar to what we just went through with rookie extensions, and I just had a conversation with a team who extended a player, and they said to me like, "Did we overpay?" And I said, "Is your player happy?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, it was worth the extra $2 million you gave him, so the guy doesn't ask to be traded during the year, and it disrupts your chemistry this year." So that's with the Bronny pick going at, where he was picked. Does it make your franchise player happy? Oh, yeah. Does it make your locker room happy? Yeah. Does it make your practices better? Oh, yeah. Then that's the end goal here. And I think it's good. I think it's a terrific story. I said it to Malika Andrews because it was a segment, I think maybe a month ago. When should we see Bronny? I said, start him on opening night. And she almost fell off the chair. And I said, now that would be something here. As far as what we're going to see. And I do think we'll see him in that Minnesota game here. But I think it's a terrific story. And I think, listen, 3 weeks from now, he's probably going to be in G League. He's probably going to be with South Bay. He's going to probably be coming up and down, getting more game time experience.
Yeah, and by the way, it'll be great for the South Bay Lakers too, And so the G League season, I think the first game is November 7th. I don't know when their first game is, but so the first 3 weeks of the season, basically, there's no G League. He'll be with the club, I would assume, for all those games. We've talked about this before, but October 30th they play in Cleveland. LeBron's favorite holiday is Halloween. It's one day before Halloween. He gets to sort of be there, have his Halloween party potentially at home in Akron, and it's the beginning of their road trip. So everybody is going to be sort of in a good mood, So at the end of the 4-5 game trip, not everybody's in as good of a mood, but it'll be a great opportunity to take advantage of all that. That's all out there. So I just think it's a win-win, and ultimately, like, we know Bronny's not a finished product. Like, you don't have to examine his shooting numbers. They're not good. He couldn't shoot at USC. He's not shooting great now. He didn't shoot great in summer league. We get it. We know. Him getting playing time, he is not a rotational NBA player right now. We know. That's why you won't see JJ Redick put him out there in a situation where the score is important. And I think he'll be careful with all that. Like, my viewpoint is, let's just have everybody's eyes wide open on exactly what's going on. And I think the Lakers have been above board with all of it. Yes, they've said good things about Bronny. Yes, they obviously believe they can develop him into something. Are the chances super high of that happening? I don't know. Maybe not great, but why not? He's 19 years old. We're going to see. But I think from an organizational standpoint, as you said, I think it's good. And frankly, it's not even that expensive. Okay, here in LA this week, Bobby, the Phoenix Suns are in town, and I'm going to go to spend some time with the Suns. And I'm just going to bring your name up because you picked them in your preseason predictions to go to the finals. They have the 9th best odds at ESPN Bet on getting to the finals. There's like the top 8 teams have like not too bad odds. It's I think the most in like last decade, the most teams that have like 12 to, there's some number 12 to 1 or better, those top 8. Then there's a little gap, and then it's the Suns. You're excited to see what the Suns do.
I am. I mean, I liked everything they did in the offseason. I mean, with Tyus Jones at point guard, you have Monty Morris coming off. You got a big and Mason Plumlee. We talked before about Ryan Dunn, their pick from Virginia. Mike Budenholzer. Well, I mean, of course, health will be the key with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. And I think the one thing that we overlook is Grayson Allen coming off the bench now, who is probably one of your better players, at least more consistent players a year ago in Phoenix here. So I picked them to play Boston in the finals. I might have picked Phoenix last year also to make it.
Yeah, I was on that. I don't know about the finals, but I was on that train last year, and I got knocked off several times, and I tried to hang on, but I eventually had to wave the white flag. So look, I mean, that's the one thing. Like, I wrote a story on ESPN.com that published on Tuesday about my bosses really wanted to talk about LeBron, Steph, and Durant, like sort of maybe not being in the mix. Last year they were all home by the end of the first round, and I call them the first ballot trio. Like these are like, the elders and ever. LeBron and Steph, like I don't like their chances of advancing deep. I can't necessarily put Durant quite in the same boat. Like my editors pointed out, well, the Suns have the 9th best odds, but the Lakers have the 10th best odds. There's no real difference there if you're going to say that. I go, yeah, but let's be honest, the Suns not quite the same. So I kind of feel where you're coming from. I want to believe in the Suns, but I'll just wait a little bit. What I'm looking for is what McMahon calls the I-35 corridor, and we're not going to just stop in Oklahoma. Wembanyama, you know that I'm as excited about Wembanyama as I've been excited about a player in 20 years. I know that's not, Bontemps makes fun of me for saying that, but like just because a lot of people are excited about him doesn't mean it's not exciting, okay? And I'm going to watch him right out of the gate. Very excited. The Thunder are, seeing how good they are, and I know Hartenstein is out, not Steen. I've been educated by the Thunder on this, so we're not going to get the full impact right away. But seeing exactly how good they are coming back from last year, like it's possible that team could be just awesome and could be a 60-win team. And then all the way up north to the team that is here in LA right now with the Timberwolves. I actually think they potentially could be a better team after this trade. Not because I think that Karl Towns wasn't giving them a lot, but it just better balances their roster, better redistributes their payroll, opens up opportunities for Naz Reid and Rudy Gobert and DiVincenzo. I know that they've lost some of their role players, but I think some of the replacements they brought in are interesting, including their young guys, and some of their young guys have developed. So the I-35 corridor, with me in the middle of the country, Bobby, trying to take, it's hard to steal, anything from the coast here at ESPN, but I do my best. I-35 going straight up the middle of the country. So that's what I'm going to be watching. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your reporting and your behind the scenes stuff, which people don't appreciate, but is invaluable to us. Thank you to Jackson, our producer. Thank you for watching, listening to Hoop Collective. We'll talk to you with the Tims later this week.